Welcome to Inflection Point Podcast, where we cultivate change from the inside out as we ponder the Cairo question. Will Cairo have to protest in his lifetime for the birthright to freely and peacefully exist in the skin in which he was born? We stand on the belief that dismantling racism goes beyond laws and legislation or politics and economics. Here, anti-racism activation is presented as an inside job where personal transformation and accountability impact social change. So take a seat at the anti-racism activation table with Inflection Point Podcast.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Inflection Point Podcast. And we thank you for tuning in. As you know, we are dedicated to the art of listening and authentic conversation. We challenge our audience to listen actively and intentionally for the purpose of critical self-reflection, in-depth perspective taking, personal transformation, and ultimately social impact. Our 2024 theme has been the art of community conversations in today's climate of systemic and institutional racism, anti-racism activation, equity, diversity, and inclusion, and book banning. So I am your host, Anita Russell, and here's a quick hello from co-host Mavis and Gail.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Mavis Bauman.
Welcome. I'm Gail Hunter.
Excellent, excellent. So in previous episodes, we have taken a deep dive into the concept of leadership as a social process, as defined by the Center for Creative Leadership. And we talked about true leadership through the perspective of action-driven decisions that are related to equity, diversity, and inclusion. In today's episode, we share our personal sentiments regarding the 2024 presidential election from yesterday evening. So we decided to kind of diverge a little bit from our normal way of doing it, where we talk very specifically about some very targeted pieces of information and things like that. So what we decided to do with this episode, and also for the reason that we're winding down for the year. So after this episode, we only have 3 more to go. So it's kind of appropriate for us to have this conversation right now, especially since our topic is the election 2024 and the aftermath of that election. So what we decided that we would do was just share our sentiments. What were the things that we were thinking? What were the things that we were feeling? What were we experiencing as we were going through not just the process of listening as the election results were rolling in, but what are some of the things that we were feeling in the days leading up to the election? So I can start that conversation just by sharing. I had the privilege, if you will, of hearing Kamala Harris speak at a rally in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And this was the night before the election. And it was interesting the way the whole thing unfolded, right? Because when we got out of church on Sunday, we found out, we kind of got the message that she was going to be in the area. So we went down to a little community gathering. There were some speakers there and all of that. And then we got the final word that she was going to be at a specific location, which actually wasn't very far from where the community gathering was, but it was a much, much bigger space, a much safer space, and all of that. And ironically, the location where it's a place called the Cary Furnace, which is in Rankin, Pennsylvania, which is a little suburb of Pittsburgh. So if you've ever heard of Braddock, Pennsylvania, Rankin, Pennsylvania, we were kind of in that environment. And originally, that her rally was supposed to be at Point Park downtown. Again, if you've been to Pittsburgh, You might know a little bit about Point Park, where in the summertime, the big fountain is on. It's where the three rivers come together. And it's really, really a beautiful space to be in the city of Pittsburgh. But the problem was it's a very, very open space. And so from a security perspective, it just wasn't going to work out well. And so it ended up being moved over to this area that I'm referring to as the Carey Furnace, right? Which was an amazing space. And it was interesting I was actually with my husband, and we had taken a trip to Walmart. And when we were driving home, we ran smack dab into traffic. And so at first we were wondering, was it an accident? What's going on? Finally, we realized that this is the spot where the Kamala Harris rally is going to be. So then we had to figure out, because all the traffic was rerouted and all kinds of things like that. So we had to figure out, how are we going to get the truck and put it somewhere, park it, and walk up to the location. And so we were able to do that. It was a very long walk, but it was worth every second of it. And I have had the pleasure of being at a watch party when Barack Obama was elected the first time. And that was such an amazing experience. And the thing that I was so amazed by was that the atmosphere, the air was almost electrifying. And I had that same experience when we went to the rally for Kamala Harris. It was exciting. There was music, and there were so many people. The number of people, I don't even know how many people it was, but it was just so many people. And the beautiful thing was that it was such a diverse group of people. So, and I mean diversity in terms of race, in terms of gender, in terms of generation. I mean, there were little kids there all the way up to seniors and all of that. So it was just an amazing gathering. And I felt so blessed to be a part of this thing that was this moment in history. And I really walked away feeling like there's no way she's going to lose. She's going to win. There's no way she's going to lose. And it wasn't just me that felt that way. That was the energy in the crowd, right? And so it was just a very magical, it's almost like a magical moment for me. So that was kind of the space and time that we were in leading up to the election. So it started off when that Sunday when we got out of church, and it was a community gathering, which was really, really nice. And there was just people, the mayor of Braddock was there, and it was just such a nice gathering. And then, later on, a day or so later, when we found out that the rally was being held at this Carey Furnace location, and that the timing was just so perfect, that when we got to a certain point, realized that was going on. So we turned around, parked the car, got out, and walked. And it was such a energizing walk. So I just wanted to share that was my experience in kind of that time leading up to the election and being in that space of that rally. It was very invigorating for me.
That must have been incredible.
It truly was.
Yeah.
It truly was.
Yeah, mine was a quieter experience prior to that. But yeah, I'm so grateful for the podcast that we do, and for the ability to communicate and to discuss and look at all the different issues that we have, and to feel that I'm doing something to contribute towards more and more anti-racism and the development of not just individuals, but collectively as a humanity, and then certainly as a nation. And I was really believing that there would be more people that would see the contrast between the two candidates, the extreme contrast, and the truth that I could see pretty clearly. And so I was very hopeful and very positive and excited. And yet I kept hearing this voice and I mean, saying, she's not going to win. And I didn't want to listen to that. And I can, most of all, because I don't want to believe that we are still not where I would hope we would be as a nation. That one that people would be willing to see a female in the presidency, and especially a Black female, person of color in that position. And I believe that for many of us, we are there and we are able to and accept that and encourage it and support it and endorse it and everything else, right? And the results were not that. But up until that point, I was still hopeful and trying to just push away that nagging kind of voice I was hearing, because I wanted to believe.
And
I do believe.
Yeah, and it was that hope, that element.
That incredible hope. That's right.
Yeah,
that we all felt, right?
Absolutely.
That she brought to all of us, and it was a hope at many different levels, right? Yeah. And I had a hard time even listening to the other candidate, and because I could hear what he was saying and what he wasn't saying. Yeah. But she was amazing.
She's a star,
I mean, just think about it. In 3 months, she just was able to collectively pull in so many people, right?
Exactly.
I mean,
that's to me, that's one of the
amazing.
Right. It was 107 days.
And only somebody that could be that authentic and that genuine could ever accomplish that.
Exactly. Because when you look at the election results, it wasn't like she got 10% of the population.
No, that's right. Right.
So considering the fact that she just started 107 days ago,
right.
I thought that was, it's just very powerful. Just very, very powerful.
Yes.
So your thoughts, Mavis?
Well, I wasn't quite that hopeful, at least last night and maybe a few days before. I still have PTSD from the 2016 election. I felt so positive and I couldn't forgive the polls. I need to post somewhere, do not listen to the polls, because it is just whiplash. And you don't know, I just don't feel like the polls are based on truth. They're based on mathematics. So what I did last night was I listened to Heather Cox Richardson. She had a little chat about what she saw about Kamala's campaign. And she said that she executed her campaign and the transition from Biden to her flawlessly.
She did.
There were no hateful remarks. She stayed very factual. I just thought she did a great campaign. But what's been bothering me for a while is, what don't I know and understand about the red parts of this country? What don't I know and understand? And it's not for lack of trying. I want to understand. I don't want to hear far right language that is hateful and ideological. I want to know facts, from real people, not media that is trying to get ratings. So I just feel like I've been swimming in this arena for a while. I saw a comment, an opinion column by Bret Stephens in the New York Times today. And I've seen him do, point and counterpoint kind of pieces with Gail Collins, who's a Democrat. And he said something that is such a big ouch to me. He says the Democrats have become the party of priggishness, pontification, and pomposity. Are we people who are responding to love, to accepting people as they are, to wanting everyone to feel free and safe? Does that make us pompous? You know? And it just, I mean, I guess that's a piece of the other side that I'm not hearing till now, you know? And I keep thinking, what bubble am I in? But anytime I hear something from the, far right perspective, it is totally antithetical to anything I was taught growing up, which is to love your neighbor, to love God, to entertain the stranger, to not other people, to not bully kids in the schoolyard, which is effectively, this is what we've got as a country, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I feel like a deer in the headlights. I'm going through the shock of it, I guess. I saw someone post on LinkedIn today, election day. He said, election day, and it feels like I'm waiting for the results of a biopsy. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. And I'm just going to leave that there for a minute.
One of the things that I found interesting was, so I'm kind of like you, Mavis, and Gail as well, just trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together that exists in the mind of somebody who sees this from a very different perspective than I do, right? I.e., those individuals who fully embrace the opposing candidate and are willing to, irrespective of behavior or actions or insulting people, you still can see yourself aligning with that. And so there was one particular segment that I saw where they were interviewing. They had, this was on CNN, and there were a number of different journalists, reporters at different locations, all at the same time. And they were all doing exit polls. And the one, I don't remember the city, but out of all the ones that I saw, the main one that stood out, and it was like a mixture. There was people who supported this side and the other side. But there was one particular person, and it was a woman, right? And she was asked about, her voting and everything. And she said, I voted for the opposing candidate. And then the reporter asked her, well, why? What was it that made you vote for him? And her response was, well, his values. I really believe in his values. And then the journalist or the reporter asked, well, what were those specific values that you believed in? And she couldn't name a single value. She literally could not name a single value. And she just ended up kind of stumbled over her words a bit and said, oh, I just believe in what he believes in, or I believe in the same values as him, but couldn't name a value. I thought that was really interesting.
And any more than I think anybody could actually state what his policies are that he is proposed, right? Yeah. So that, and that's, and people that have said, that I don't care if it's true or not, I'm still going to believe in him. I'm still going to vote for him. And so those are not uncommon things that have been reported upon. Yet, how do you vote for somebody that you don't really know what their values are, what their beliefs are, what they're going to propose to do?
Absolutely.
That you'd want to run the country. Yeah.
And how many of those voters were listening to the words that came out of his mouth?
Yes.
if they've already made the decision once he decided to run, is over, right? So when you ask them about the values that he stands for, they probably haven't even thought about it any further. No. I don't know. I really want to be careful not to generalize so much. I know that that's it's just a natural human inclination to do that. But we got, the Democrats got whooped. They really got whooped. And I really want to understand, like Anita says, what are those pieces that came together?
And you asked before, Anita, what caused that, or what's going on that so many people chose what they chose, and don't know some of the answers to those questions, don't really understand, and that couldn't even hear what he was saying. I mean, you can go online and find all the different quotes that he had said, and if you really look at them and listen to them, how is that the person that you want?
Yes,
that's right. Yeah. But I can tell you that I think what this is all about was fear, and fear on both sides. Fear that the Republicans must return to whatever that was 50, 60 years ago, 70, whatever, right? Which is at the height of racism, right? At the height of misogyny and chauvinism and a few other isms, and that they believed the fear that he was instilling, even based on things that weren't true.
Right. And through all of that, what I would call haze, through all of that haze, it turns out for the most part that the number one thing was the economy. And so I look at it from the standpoint, if we keep only focusing on the economy, we lose sight of all of the other issues swirling around and have been swirling around for quite a while.
Yeah.
You lose
sight. It became a country, really.
Exactly. You can't, it's inconceivable to me that there are individuals who think that that's the only thing that matters.
Right. Yeah. Well, and even if that's important to you, then look at the facts. I mean, it's, yes. Inflation is down, right? The stock market is at all-time high. I mean, there's a robust employment going on and growth, and violent crime is down. I mean, so look at what the facts are. They're not what was presented.
Exactly. And there's this whole thing around the crime thing, because I believe, Gail, you had a statistic that was talking about that crime actually going down.
Violent crime is down 15 to 20, 15.2%, I think it is.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's down.
What some of my right-leaning friends have said, I don't believe it. Those are numbers from the government. I don't like Biden, so those numbers are a lie.
Well, the numbers
the candidate that you're voting for doesn't it just feels very convoluted to me. It just
doesn't match up.
Word when you're trying to hold two opposing thoughts in your mind.
Right.
At the same time. It just doesn't.
Cognitive dissonance.
Cognitive dissonance. It just absolutely makes no no sense to me whatsoever.
I want to share
that I can, kind of discern things, but just having, and like I said, that one lady, when she couldn't even name a value. See, that blows me away. Because if you're casting something as important as your vote, and you can't really explain why,
you haven't thought about it.
That's right.
You haven't thought about it.
Right.
I wanted to share just a few more words from Brett Stevens. He says, how indeed did the Democrats lose, considering how they saw Donald Trump, a twice impeached former president, a felon, a fascist, a bigot, a buffoon, a demented old man, an object of nonstop late night mockery and incessant moral condemnation? That was the question. He answers, the theory that many Democrats will be tempted to adopt is that a nation is prone to racism, sexism, xenophobia, and rank stupidity, that we fell prey to the type of demagoguery that once beguiled Germany into electing Adolf Hitler. I do feel that way. That is what is being said. And then he says, the broad inability of liberals to understand Trump's political appeal, except in terms of flattering to their beliefs of this horrible outcome, is itself part of the explanation for his historic and entirely avoidable comeback. Entirely avoidable.
Yes.
What could we have done?
Yes.
What could we have done? What could anybody, does anybody know the total votes on the both sides? I haven't seen that number yet.
I've seen
electoral vote versus popular vote. I haven't seen those numbers yet.
I don't remember exactly what they were, because remember, maybe Gail showed us that picture and it had it broken down by the percentages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I don't really.
Right. I might be able to pull it up on the break, but I really do want to learn. I mean, even in the context of this podcast, where we are really standing up against racism and otherism and, greed and all kinds of things. We want a country for everyone to be safe. We're not in a competition. I don't feel like I'm in competition. I'm trying to rise above even my worst instincts.
Right, exactly. And so when I think back on last night as the election results were coming in, and it was very exciting in the beginning, especially when initially Pennsylvania was looking really good, and it just took a while for the full results to come and everything. But then
Iowa and Georgia.
Yeah. But
really
there came that moment when everything inside of me was all of a sudden, it was just dread.
Right. Yeah.
It was dread.
Switched over.
It just literally began to slowly shift rather from the space that I was in, the excitement, and watching the numbers come in, and then slowly but surely it started to shift into dread. And I just kept watching, because I was like, this can't be happening. I just kept watching and watching and watching and watching. And
every minute of the disaster in slow motion.
So 72 to 67.
Our lovely producer just
thank you.
She's awesome.
Thank you. The Trump popular vote, 72,168,843 to 67,357,531. And again, what we said earlier,
she didn't get the popular vote either.
She didn't get the popular vote, but she got that number of votes in 107 days.
Oh, that's right. Good point. You got to pull me back out of the ditch.
The opponent had the entire duration of.
Wow, he's had longer than that too.
All of that. 107 days she did that. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. I don't care. I mean, obviously I care that, it didn't go in the direction that I was hoping, but you cannot discount that.
No, absolutely.
You cannot discount that. And the energy in that crowd that I was in, and you look at all the videos of all the other ones, that energy was real.
Thanks for being a live witness. There weren't any.
That's right. Yeah.
That rallied around here. So
it was real. Like, even when I think about it now, I just get excited all over again. But I was just thinking about that dread that I had. And you know how you get that feeling, that gut feeling, like, oh, something's not right. Something's not
right. Yeah, when I went to bed.
It was very much like that. So we're going to take a break. I take a quick break, and then we'll come back and resume the conversation and dig a little bit deeper into our reaction to the final outcome.
Mm-hmm.
To Inflection Point Podcast and our community conversations for 2024. And this episode, we are sharing our personal perspective on the results of the 2024 presidential election. So we were just getting ready to go into a conversation about our reaction to the final outcome. So I want to start with you, Mavis. Your reaction when it finally sunk in, whether it was during the night or in the morning, when it finally sunk in for you.
It was in the morning, about 10 till 6. I wouldn't allow myself to look at my phone. I could see texts coming in, and I thought, then I won't sleep. That will be over. And so I didn't look until this morning, and I was, I guess just devastated. I was still hopeful when I turned off the light. I thought, how the red mirage at first, and then, California comes in and so on. But I don't like the way I'm feeling about it. I don't like the rage, the rage even at myself for not understanding that much of the country that voted for him. I don't understand how he can say such hateful, threatening, and vulgar things, and people can overlook it. Mm-hmm. I just want to know. I want to know how that works. I already know I'm on the wrong planet, but I really want to get to the point where I can understand that, because I don't want to play this anymore. I don't want to play this exhausting game with the pollsters doing their thing, with the numbers and just all of us listening to them when we're missing something else. We're missing some qualitative information that we're just not hearing. So I'm just really discouraged, and I just couldn't really talk to other people today besides my podcast team. So that's where I am at the moment, and was this morning.
Yeah. So for me, I had mentioned earlier about the dread. That started last night, but unlike you, Mavis, the dread was so powerful in me, I couldn't go to sleep. I just couldn't go to sleep. And so I ended up, I think I went and laid down maybe at 4:00 in the morning or something. But I just felt totally so it was like almost like I was having an out of body experience or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And what I found interesting is that I remember the feeling I had when he was first elected in 2016.
Yeah.
It was like a physical assault to my person.
Mm-hmm.
And I wept and wept and wept. Yeah. And now I feel more like, kind of a cold shell. That is this the country I live in? Is this really, can I really affect this? Does my soft heart have a job in this country?
Yes.
Should I spend my energy for this?
Yes.
Yeah. I want to tell you yes.
Thank you.
That's mine too. But I want to answer some of what you're asking is like, what is that about? People would listen, what people wouldn't really see or hear. And I think it's a lot about what Trump actually believes himself. And he has made quotes about this, which I don't understand how people can't hear that. And when it's in just black and white, it's just literally taken from, like when he said that people just, what was it? People just still just believe you. You just tell them and they believe it. That's it. You just tell them and they believe. I love poorly educated. Right. And then he said, I could stand. Right. He said, I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters. That's his belief.
I asked you to go back and repeat that statement. I want to make sure that our audience fully hears about the educated part.
Okay, so he says, well, let me put my glasses on, make sure I am saying it. I'm pretty sure I said it right. People will just believe you. You just tell them and they believe it. That's it. You just tell them and they believe. And this is in quotes, I love the poorly educated. And then he said this a while ago, I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters. Okay. That was the quote. Now, what is this? So that was his belief. And if you really listen to what he was saying, he didn't often say something that was true and he didn't care, right? It didn't matter that he was saying something over and over. It doesn't matter that he wasn't answering a question. He would just put out there whatever he thought was going to instill more and more fear, right? And cause more and more people to want to vote for him because he was saying at the same time he was putting that fear out there, you vote for me because I'm the one that's going to change this country around, right?
Yeah.
I think he's just an unedited person. And so he would throw things out that was in his mind, showing who he really is the whole time, and people ignored it.
Right.
You know?
Having said all of that, it's to me, like if I think about this somewhat metaphorically, it was like Kamala Harris was like a breath of fresh air.
Yes.
Yes.
It was literally like a breath of fresh air. Like, oh, wow, there is hope. We can, in fact, do things very, very differently. So I want to share with the audience a family member of mine and what their reaction when they found out. So my daughter lives in New York, and when she went to the poll to vote, she took my grandson, who is Cairo. So if you've been following our podcast, you know that we talk about this little kid named Cairo and what is life going to look like for him, because what we do today is going to determine what life will look like for him. So my daughter took him to the polls when she was going to vote. And so she, did the tabulation and everything. And she let him put the paper in the scanner, right? And they gave him stickers. One sticker said, I voted. And then the other sticker said, future voter. So my daughter sent me a picture of him. And he's like this, and he's smiling. He's like, I voted. 4 years old. I voted, right? So then morning comes. So now my daughter has to have the conversation with him because he asked her, so who won? And the interesting thing is that right now he's in that space of understanding that there's good people and there's bad people. So there's the good guys and the bad guys. And in his mind, the bad guys always win. Let me take that back. The good guys always win. That's the mindset of a 4-year-old. The good guys always win, right? So my daughter explains to him that, so it was easy for her to say, okay, it's the lady and then it's the man, right? Really elementary so he could understand it. And she told him, well, the man won. And he was like a little confused and said, but isn't he bad? And so, of course, my daughter, kind of speaking in that vernacular, said, yes, he was the bad man. And so he made a very interesting statement. So that means that the bad guys sometimes win. I thought for a 4-year-old, that was a very astute observation that he was able to come with. So that means sometimes the bad guys win. And then he asked her if he could wear his Spider-Man mask to school because he wants to be seen as a good guy. So for me, that was such a powerful reaction to the final outcome. And when I think back on the Barack Obama, the the second term, at that time, my older grandson, who's now 17, he was like a little kid then as well. And I had taken him to the polls, and he got the little, you know, the little ballot that's like a sample ballot, right? And so he checked off Barack Obama and then wrote his name on it. And he took a nice picture like that. I take that back. It wasn't Barack Obama. It was Hillary Clinton. I apologize for that. It was Hillary Clinton, right? And so, yeah, it was that election. It was after Barack Obama, right? And so it was when Trump won. And my grandson is the one that called me on the phone in the morning and told me what the outcome of the election was. And he asked me a question. And the question that he asked me was, does that mean we have to leave the country? So the point being, our kids, little as they are, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, they are paying attention.
Yeah.
They are paying attention.
And they can feel it. They can feel the tension.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those are my two.
Well, and that's the fear that is left, we're all left with, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I've always said that the opposite of fear is love and variations of that. And that to release fear, we have to meet it with its opposites, polar opposite. And love is also holds truth. And so from my perspective is I have to continue making those choices, right? What is true? And to come to whomever I meet with that belief that I'm not any better or worse, I'm not less or more, and to see the humanity.
And Gail, don't you think you do that every day?
Yes, I do.
You do that every day, Nita. I do that every day. Right. I don't charge it to someone with a hateful statement. No. I don't, because I see them as an individual human being, and I know I don't know their story. Right. So I'm not going to lunge into anyone.
And that's what we all need.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in the aggregate, can you imagine? One other thing I wanted to share that set me up for the day was Hannah Nicole Jones's statement. I think it was on Twitter. She said, "We woke up in the country we've always lived in." Mm-hmm. So nothing is different. And that sends chills down my back, because we're in the business, aren't we, ladies, of wanting to make this world a better place. We need the hope and the fuel to keep pushing for that. But it must seem ridiculous to a lot of people. It's been far worse. And, nothing is new under the sun kind of thing. Mm-hmm. This Brett Stevens, and then I'm not reading him anymore, maybe ever, but anyway, he says the last line in his paragraph his article is, "Right now, my larger fear is that liberals lack the introspection to see where they went wrong, the discipline to do better next time, and the humility to change."
I think that's a projection.
Is that true?
I mean, that's a projection. Yeah.
So, do I not have the discipline to look into this enough to really understand? This is the whole platform for our podcast, right?
Right.
Cultivating personal transformation.
Right. That's right.
And being able to engage in legitimate conversations.
Yes. Right. To be able to listen, not just speak, but yes.
Not like arguing and yelling at one another and screaming, and not even pretending like I'm trying to listen to you. Mm-hmm. Right. And I saw it was like this panel discussion, that I was watching, and it was the woman who was kind of guiding the conversation. There were two people on Zoom, and then there were two people in the studio with her, right? And it was one man who was a Trump supporter, and then there was another, and these were both black men. Another black man that was not a Trump supporter, and just listening to the first gentleman dressed in red from head to toe, he came across with the same personality. And that whole thing of talking over people when they ask you a question and you give them an answer that has nothing to do with the question that they actually asked you. And when they're trying to get you to actually answer the question that they asked you, you talk over them.
Like the guy on Fox did with Kamala Harris when he interviewed her.
Exactly. So that's their modus operandi, right? Yeah. That's just how they operate. And so it was just really interesting watching that. And then the other two people that were on the Zoom, one of them was also in the MAGA camp, and then the other woman was not. But the point I'm making is that the conversation was very difficult to have because they kept just talking over and refused to actually answer the question that was being asked. Like, how do you get anywhere in a communication process if all you do is talk over people?
How did they both feel leaving that conversation?
Well, there's no equity. It's not an equitable conversation, right?
Not at all.
Intimidating.
Yeah. Not at all.
It's like a bullet, right? It's,
Yeah. You know what I liked about Kamala's concession speech, I'm paraphrasing now, is that the work we've done is not over. We're going to continue to do this.
That's right.
Which I loved. I really loved that. And she said, we do not concede the fight that fueled this campaign. We agree to treat all strangers with kindness, to fight for dignity that all people deserve.
Nice.
And I wanted to share something a friend of mine sent to me. Hang on. You know, my phone got to see my face. This is about hope. And I think it fits into what Kamala said. People speak of hope as if it is this delicate, ephemeral thing made of whispers and spider webs. It's not. Hope has dirt on her face and blood on her knuckles, the grit of cobblestones in her hair, and just spat out as a tooth as she rises for another go.
Wonderful.
We're going to keep going.
Yes, exactly.
We passed ourselves.
Brings us to the last portion of our conversation is the election is over. What is our call to action now? And it dovetails exactly with what you just said.
Yes.
And I had the chance to watch the concession speech as well. And I found it to be very powerful in the sense that it wasn't a this is over conversation. It was like, we will continue.
Right.
We will continue. Yes. And then in the little comments, I saw somebody had put hashtag KH 2028. So it's like people are already kind of thinking,
let's do it.
Recipe like that.
We're not done. Right.
Yeah, I think you had something you were ready to say.
No.
Okay.
But basically, yes, I agree that we're not done, and we have to continue doing what we're doing until it's that quote that I told you about before, that we'll know that racism doesn't exist anymore when we don't have to use the word antiracism.
Antiracism.
Yeah. Yes, that's from Shireen Daniels.
Right. Yeah.
Her book.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah.
And so, again, thinking about
so we're not done yet.
So again, it took me some time throughout the course of the day to get rid of that feeling that I was having. But as I was getting rid of that feeling, another feeling was starting to take over. And that feeling that was, so even when I was in that feeling, I'm just going to be honest here. I actually had a moment where I was almost like, why am I doing this?
Yes.
Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
What if we just end the podcast at the end of the year and just say, I'm done?
Mm-hmm.
But then something else began to rise up inside of me. And it came when I read Sharon Hurley Hall's piece.
Yes.
When
Yeah.
I read that, all my power just came flooding right back inside of me. Of course, we will continue. And I didn't hear the concession speech until much later after that. So when I heard that, that was that sort of affirmation and confirmation that I needed. And that sort of thing. So it looks like we are almost out of time. We always run out of time so quickly. So I wrote a statement myself, right? And I'm going to read this statement as I guess our closing quote. Election night 2024. Sometimes I rise and stand to realize the earth has shifted beneath my feet. The hope for change seemingly beyond my reach. Yet today, I'm woke and ready as I continue to rise and stand some more. That's what this is about.
Yes.
That's what this is about.
Get up. Do it again.
That's
right.
And that's what every bit of social change has taken in the past. It's a requirement.
Look at the numbers of people that did vote for Kamala.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Focus on that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so as usual, we wrote sort of take everything back to and relate it to the Cairo question. Now, I talked about the little 4-year-old, that's my grandson, Cairo. We base this podcast on this very central question, which is still relevant. We're getting ready to go into what, almost our 3rd year of doing this, and this question is still
fourth year.
Fourth year. Yes. Will Cairo have to protest in his lifetime for the birthright to freely and peacefully exist in the skin in which he was born? That ultimate question is based on our personal accountability and how we define ourselves as a member of a society, of our society, a leader and a learner, standing on the precipice of change where we still find ourselves. We are still there, and we all have a role to play. So the question is, the final question, what will you do to ensure that Cairo and his contemporaries have that birthright to freely and peacefully exist in the skin in which they were born? So thank you for joining us on yet another episode of Inflection Point Podcast here on Transformation Talk Radio. We are here every first and third Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern time, as we continue our community conversations. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you for listening to Inflection Point Podcast, where our mantra is cultivating change from the inside out. The journey towards anti-racism and social change doesn't stop here. Truth, reconciliation, and healing come from ongoing, open, honest, and deliberate conversations. Continue to dive in and deconstruct your thoughts, ideas, and beliefs as we band together to manifest social change. Tune in to Inflection Point Podcast every first and third Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, here on TransformationTalkRadio.com for more conversations about how we can cultivate change from the inside out.